Hello and welcome back to this Working with Real Drums mini-series, where we are making real drums go from this to this. So this is actually part 3, where we're working on hi-hats, overheads, rooms and the drum bus. Go back and watch video 1 where we did the kick and snare, and video 2 where we did the toms, to get a full picture of working with real drums. The links will be in the description. And just quickly, I record and mix rock, emo, pop punk and all those kind of genres. If you make music like that and want me to mix your next record, head over to terrybeckleyrecording.com, hit me up via the contact form. I will get back to you. The link is in the description. Okay, so let's get started. Hi-hat. So, just like the toms in video 2, hi-hats need cutting. You have to cut the hits and then leave enough decay so that they only are making sound when they need to. Otherwise, you end up again with a whole drum sound in one mic. And if we hadn't cut anything, we would have all the drum sound in the snare, in the toms, and in the hi-hat so far. And that is just extra noise and extra bleed. You're never going to get a rock mix, with big kick and big snare and big overall drums, because you just have one drum sound. It will just sound like, a really roomy stereo mic recording. That's why you can see here, you've got these little hi-hat hits. All they are is this. You can hear the actual snare roll in that, but it's decaying out. Too short and it will sound like a big sharp burst of like 4K and upwards. So it's cool to have the hit and then just give a little bit of tail on it, so it doesn't like just hit your ear really hard. Okay, so let's have a look. EQ, rolling off all that low end. You do not need it. Hi-hats are going to be in the overheads. You don't need any of that stuff. I've got a little bump here at around 400. That's because there is a sort of low end attack to the cymbals when the stick hits it. And with some cymbals, I think they get a bit too hissy if you don't have that in there. You want the complete sound. So that's why I've got that. And that is why I have this subsequent dip there, to make sure we're only getting that sort of donkey sound from the drumstick. And then this is sort of where the attack point is here, around 2K. So off and on, let's have a listen. So I'll start with it off and on. See, there's not much difference there, and that's what's important. I'm actually clearing up a lot of the stuff we don't need. And there's proof there. You couldn't really hear too much of a difference between the two hits. But, all that sort of mud and low end and stuff, that just adds up in every single track. Mixing 101 really, isn't it? We put a bit of reverb on these just to try and put the drums in the same space. Yes, this was a live recording, and yes, there are room tracks on it. But I prefer to sort of mix in my own ambience, because the room tracks, or the room itself, probably wasn't too nice, and the ambience wasn't that pleasing. So with the ambience, it also elongates the tail so that it sounds more natural and doesn't sound like a stab, sudden hi-hat out of nowhere. Cool, nice and easy. Overheads. Let's bypass everything and then we'll work plug-in by plug-in. So without anything on it, they sounded like this. Pretty much the whole drum sound. We already have the drum sound. We don't really need all that. We want bright sounding overheads as well, especially in rock. And you can't really go bright without treating it, because it will just get hissy and painful. Plus, these are quite dark sounding, so we would need to give a little bit of air. Not too much, and I don't think I actually used an EQ boost in the end. I think I just pulled the low end and mud out. So first up, Soothe. Very important. All of that nasty painfulness between 2 and 4K is dealt with here with Soothe. And the Pro Q3. Again, rolling off the low end we don't need. We're going to have it in the room tracks and the actual individual shell mics. And then these are going to be problem areas. That's a bit of mud. These will be horrible frequencies that I just dip out. Soothe does a lot of this anyway. It cleans it up nicely, and then you can just go in and zone in with the Pro Q3. The Mag EQ, I'm pretty sure, isn't doing anything. Yeah, they're all at 0. I like to leave them in there, because if I want to go back and quickly boost some air, I've got it ready to go. And then some compression. Once it's nice and clean, you can then get a bit more energy out of it by, again, slow attack, almost as fast as you can go on the release to really give that energy. So let's hear them all on. See, way brighter now without an EQ boost. I will EQ boost cymbals a lot of the time, but I guess this was just sounding a bit too harsh, and they sound plenty bright without one. So let's go through the actual Pro Q3 notches. I think that's the most important thing here. So you can hear what each one is doing and why I'm taking it away. You have like a hallway whistle sound, or like wind down a hallway, not really a whistle. You know, you don't need that horrible noise. See what else we got. Yeah, that's a dynamic EQ because every now and then there was like a quick spike in that frequency. So that's to make it even. So let's have a listen to some of these nasty ones. Yeah, so like I said, Soothe does the most of this work, so you only have to pinpoint the bits that are causing problems. Most likely I threw the compressor on at the end, then went back and removed those bits because the compressor would have brought the nastiness out a bit more. Okay, no actual plugins on the cymbal bus. Rooms. Again, I'll play you what we had, and then we'll see what it turned into. Yeah, not a great sounding room, quite dead. That's why I like to bring in my own ambience, because that just sounded a bit dull, really, didn't it? Not much definition. You can't help how the room is that it's recorded in. Why not work some magic on them? Again, these problem areas that we had in the overheads are probably going to exist in the room track too, as they're recorded in the same space. So we've got cymbal smooth, dealing with the 2 to 4K. Oh, a bit more than we had in the last one. But then you did hear that it was a bit of there's a lot of like shh in this one. So we'll go through and we'll have a listen to them. For Hello Room, this will be for adding in my own nice, pleasing ambience, and then being able to keep the actual real rooms in there. You can see the mix is only down to like 17-18%. Another Pro Q3. This will be to darken them. That'll probably be a whole mix decision when everything's in. You think, no, you've got the rooms and the overheads. That top end, if you pull it out of the rooms, is much nicer. If you've got that doubled up, because it's in the rooms and the overhead, it's just going to get out of control. Studio rack from Waves, and this has allowed me to compress, but only everything below 2K. Because this compressor will just throw the 2K right at you, and it will affect the frequency balance of the cymbals that I worked hard on before. Such a cool thing to have. When they brought this plugin out, I was like, I celebrated. And then a bit of, or quite a lot of tape saturation. So let's hear what we ended up with. Not too much, couldn't really change the character of the room, but that ambience in there does help it sit nicer. It's less dull. I'll take that ambience out and have a listen. Put it in. See, it's all plumes on the snare hits and things. It's like a nice touch. But a taste thing nonetheless. So let's go through that Pro Q3 and listen to what I'm getting rid of. So many nasties in there. I think every single one of those was pretty self-explanatory. Yep, and then it goes to a room bus. A bit more of that mud taken out. You could tell they were quite muddy when I went through the Pro Q3 a second ago. And then the DBX compressor, like I mentioned on the snare in the first video, this is such a nice compressor for drums. It just reacts really well in like a musical way. Cool. So that's, they don't take as much, let's say, gating and editing like the kick and snare and toms did. There's a lot more advanced stuff going in there. Usually with the cymbals, you can just eliminate the problems and mix, which is what we've done. In fact, if I show you the cymbals in the room together, I'd like to reiterate the point of how I pulled the top end out of the rooms so that the top end of the cymbals was there, the rooms was pulled back, and they complemented each other. Let me play that. There you go, see? On their own, neither one of them really stood up. But together, sounds good. Okay, let's look at the drum bus. Not too much going on here. We have a send out to the guitar verb. This is a very natural sounding song, hence why the band didn't want me to edit it. They wanted the live drums in there. It was a performance of the whole band. So I wanted to put it all in the same space. So there was some guitar verb there. I wanted to put some of the drums through that same verb just to keep it all together. So first one, this is the nonlinear summer from Waves. This is saturation. This is just a taste thing, but this one here, the mic setting, which is a Neve, just adds quite a lot of low end actually, and I just love how it sounds. I'll just play around with it till I get something I like. We can have a listen to what it's doing. Subtle because it's saturation. I don't want it to add up too much. I've got saturation going on at quite a lot of the buses throughout the whole mix. I'll move the drive knob around so you can hear it a bit more pronounced, and I'll bring it back to where it is. Yeah, so you can really drive it, and it does sound good right up until right where it starts to crap out at the end. And I do love cranking it sometimes, but this wasn't really the feel that this song had, so that's why it's kind of subtle here. And then last thing here, we've got the Townhouse, which is like an SSL compressor. And we have set this to slowest attack, fastest release for the transient punch of the drums. Let's turn that off and on, and you'll see what's going on. Again, not slamming it because I've got a very similar compressor with similar settings going on for the two bus of the whole track. But you just hear a very slight emphasis on the kick and snare hits. I didn't want it to take the rest of the drum sound. I just wanted the kick and snare hits really to be triggering it a little bit, make the cymbals bounce a little bit with the kick and snare. Okay, that's it. So you really can do quite a lot with live drums as long as you're willing to throw in samples here and there. I don't know why you wouldn't. I know that you get the audio purists, and fair enough if that's your thing, but rock, you need the samples. None of the samples here take over the sound. We still have the natural sound of the drums. The samples are just reinforcing bits I needed them to. I wasn't just replacing them. You could just go through this whole thing, replace the kick and snare. If the band have gone through the effort to record real drums, I think it's unless they've said to you, unless they're like, just do what you want. I think it's important to respect that and try and do your best to work with them. Just flat out replacing them as a matter of course, unless they're really problematic. You don't have to do that. You can work with them. You got to gate them and clean them up as much as you can. Get just the sounds you want, and then you can mix, EQ, compress, and reinforce with samples. Okay, thank you very much for watching. It's not often I get to work with real drums, so I thought I could just take this opportunity to make a video on it because, it's so rare. So much is programmed, and I am a programmed fan myself. I do like programmed drums, and I'm not a purist in any sense. But I did start learning on real drums, so I think it's cool to be able to see, sort of like a dying art now. But I think it's cool to be able to see what you can do with them. So again, if you make rock, emo, pop punk and you want me to mix your next record, terrybeckleyrecording.com, hit me up through the contact form. I'll get back to you. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.